Let me ask you all something. What is the one thing that unites every single anime fandom? Is it animation? No. Story? No, not even close. The one thing that unites every fan across the globe is slander. Your favorite characters will get slandered. It does not matter how many feats they have, how impressive they are, they will be slandered. Gojo? Carried by 6 Eyes. Yuta? Child predator. Luffy, Naruto, and Ichigo? All three of them are carried by plot, genetics, and destiny. Even the character that I choose to represent myself and my channel, Eustace Kid, is one of the most slandered characters in fiction ever. You have no clue how many useless mid jokes I've heard over the course of my life. Useless mid and his sidekick filler. But somehow, even with a never-ending need to slander pretty much anything and everything that's ever ended up on a screen, there are some characters that go beyond that. Characters that are just so unbelievably goated that they transcend the negativity of the anime fandom and get undisputed GOAT status for life. And today in this video, we are going to be talking about characters that absolutely nobody dares to talk down on due to fear of getting jumped. Or as I like to call them, the UNSLANDERABLEs. Now, warning, before I really get into this video, there will be spoilers for these animes here around me. I'll try not to spoil everything for them, but for some of these characters, in order to show how goated they really are, manga feats need to be shown. So first up, let me start with some honorable mentions. These are characters that I'm not going to go into too much detail for, but they need to be put in the video somewhere. So first up in honorable mentions, we have Eijiro Kirishima, the ultimate shield. He always stood on business. Even when he was scared for his life up against Rappa, he takes all the hits for the people behind him. And like they say in the show, if you don't go down when you get hit, that makes you strong. Next up in honorable mentions, we got Sasha Browse. Absolutely goated sniper, only way she went out was with a sneak from one of the most hated characters ever. She stuck to her cause all the way to the very end, and never in my life have I seen anybody hate on Sasha. Absolutely one of the most loved Attack on Titan characters, even if she didn't last all the way to the end. Another honorable mention I have is Kishibe from Chainsaw Man. Pretty much the only human in the series capable of throwing hands with high-level devils and still surviving. He is also the only older devil hunter we see, and in a job where people die young, you gotta respect the oldies. He also called out Makima for lying straight to her face. Unslanderable. Next up, we got Moomin Rider, a regular guy who always stands on business. He always stands up for what he thinks is right, even if he stands no chance of winning, which he never does because he's just a guy on a bike. But that is the mark of a true hero, so he for sure deserves a mention. Another one worth mentioning is Gabimaru the Hollow from Hell's Paradise. Yet another character who is always willing to throw hands. The greatest ninja in the verse and will literally fight semi-immortal gods as a human if it means he can get home to his wife. And finally in this category, we got Chozo. I would absolutely love to put him in the main list, but we've already got some goats from JJK in there, and I'm trying to keep some variety. But he absolutely needs a mention. Best big brother of all time, always willing to catch the smoke, and he stayed beside Yuji at his lowest. Never in his life has this man ever fumbled. GOAT status. Now on to the real list. So, first unslanderable character we have on this list is the strongest pillar, Gyome Himejima. Now, if I really want to display Gyome's undisputed GOAT status, I'm gonna have to go into heavy manga spoilers. So if you don't want to be spoiled for Demon Slayer, go to this time in the video. Just give you a few seconds to get there. Okay, now that they're gone, we can really get into this. Let me lay down all his feats for y'all. The strongest current Slayer in the verse, guaranteed. Every single character agrees. Anytime he's mentioned, he's called the strongest. At the end of Season 5, jumped Muzan solo before all the other pillars got there. Single-handedly decapitated him before they all got thrown into the Infinity Castle. If he wasn't immune to decapitation, he would have been done then and there. Inside the Infinity Castle, he carried the fight against the strongest upper moon, Kokushibo. And it turns out, he had already unlocked the Demon Slayer mark before plot carried Tanjiro did. He used the chains on his ball and chain to redirect Kokushibo's slashing attacks and save Sanemi's life. And then, he took down the second strongest demon in the entire verse. Even after this, he went on to be the strongest fighter in the final battle against Muzan. Got his leg completely blown off and still stood back up. And the only reason he died at the end of the fight wasn't because of his injuries, it's because he'd already unlocked the mark and he was over 25. Never once did this man fail to deliver. He carried the entire Demon Slayer Corps on his back and went out like a champ. I've heard countless power scaling arguments when it comes to the order of the pillars in Demon Slayer. Sanemi is second, Iguro is second, Giyu is second, but never once has anyone said Gyome is not the strongest. Enough said. Let's move on to the next character. Second on this list, we have Gagamaru from Blue Lock. This guy is absolutely insane. The whole plot of Blue Lock is that everybody in that building is a striker. No defenders, no midfielders, and of course, no keeper. How the hell are you meant to play football with no goalkeeper? It doesn't make sense. Well, I'll tell you how. With Gokamaru, that's how. Zero experience with goalkeeping before he arrived at Blue Lock. went up against actual professional football players with that lack of experience, and Blue Lock still won. I mean, look at all these results. Save, save, save. I mean, this guy killed a bear, for God's sake. He clutches up every single time for Blue Lock without fail. Every game, he's the starting keeper. Somehow, even after being placed on an actual professional team in the manga, he still took over the job of the goalkeeper that I can only assume has been training to be a goalkeeper his entire life. And Gagamaru has been in goals for like, what, a year, maybe, at most? And still took his position on the team. It's unbelievable. I'd be dumbstruck if I was that other guy. I honestly feel like it's not ridiculous for me to say that Blue Lock might not have even won a single game without Gagamaru. I mean, who else could have caught this shot? No one. Absolutely no one. You don't see Asagi making saves like that. Gagamaru will continue to be the starting keeper in every game and saving Blue Lock's ass at every single opportunity. GOAT status awarded. Next character. Here we have a character that I only feel like just recently has achieved unslanderable status. And I don't mean that as in like people have stopped slandering him, because I don't think I've ever heard someone slander him ever. What I mean is that people have seen the feats that this man has provided and have upgraded him to a #1 glaze target. And that character is Beam, the #1 Chainsaw Man supporter. In the Reize movie, he was definitely the MVP, no contest. He saved Denji over and over and over again. He let him ride him like a horse into the battle with the Bomb and Typhoon Devil. And never once did he show any fear at all. I mean, look at all these other characters. Aki, Violence Fiend, Kobeni. We don't want to fight the Bomb Devil. Beam, turn into a shark and use my chains as reins. Yes, sir, Chainsaw! Manga spoilers ahead for this next one, by the way. Skip to here if you haven't read Chainsaw Man. But Beam went out going for the smoke with one of the strongest devils in the verse. Probably the strongest devil we've seen in part 1. The Darkness Devil had everyone on their knees, and Beam still went into shark mode to try and save his glorious Lord Chainsaw. No matter the stakes, he was always willing to put the hands up. And now that the movie is out, people are finally giving him the respect that he deserves. GOAT status awarded. Next character. Next up on this list, we have an undisputed all-time GOAT. But first, let me transport you back through time. Back to around 2018 and 2019, when the slander for the My Hero Academia fandom was at its peak. Cringy videos were showing up here, there, and everywhere. No character was safe. Hey mom, this is my Todoroki. Catch on this, catch on that. But through it all, there stood one of the main characters who was untouchable. No one dared to even so much as glance his way with slander because they knew it would be unjust. And that character is the #1 hero, All Might. All Might always stood on business no matter who the opponent was. He was the shining star of the hero world, the unmatchable #1. Throughout the whole entire series, he was the epitome of what a hero should be. He himself, as a guy without a quirk, decided that he would be the symbol of peace that the world needed. And through sheer determination, he accomplished that goal, even after almost losing everything. Even after the hole in his gut that took away his stomach reduced him to a skeleton, he still stood against the strongest villain and won with the United States of Smash. And even after that same villain came back later in the series and All Might had 0 powers to his name, he still went up against him in an Iron Man suit, unafraid to die at all. Because what made All Might the #1 hero wasn't his power. It was the fact that he never backs down. And like I said at the start of this Glaze Fest, it doesn't matter how bad the fandom would get. No one would ever slander this GOAT. The true GOAT. The symbol of peace. Now let's move on. As you can probably tell from my room and the hoodie I'm wearing and, you know, the mascot of my channel, I actually do quite like One Piece. I mean, even down to the shoes, bro. I got the devil fruit of livings on me right now. So it would make sense for me to want to include a character from One Piece in this video. The problem is, it seems like absolutely no character is safe from the One Piece community's slander. Your character is never safe. Even a character that we thought was unslanderable up until recently, Whitebeard, has recently come under fraud allegations. So I had to get thinking. Really thinking. Who is One Piece's undisputed GOAT? Kaido? Nah, he has slander allegations too. Ace? Nah, he got killed by a Yo Daddy joke. Kid? Don't make me laugh. But then I realized. That's it. I got it. Bon Clay. Everybody loves Bon Clay. He always shows up for Luffy in the Straw Hats. Even after literally meeting them like 5 minutes ago, they were already friends. Then, even after battling on opposite sides, he ended up sacrificing his freedom to the Navy so that Luffy and the other Straw Hats could escape. And then he got locked and impaled down. Then, in Impaled Down, when Luffy and Bon were finally reunited, he battled his way through the prison with Luffy and ended up saving Luffy's life again. And you might be thinking like, okay, clearly this dude is already unslanderable. But I'm not done yet. He voluntarily stayed in Impaled Down, a literal hell on earth, the worst prison in the world, so that Luffy and the rest could escape and go save Ace. Bon Clay made a sacrifice for someone that was meant to be an enemy, not once, but twice. And why? Because friendship is not determined by how much time you spent together. Also, he's low-key like the best purple card in the TCG. Now give this man GOAT status. Let's get on to the next character. We all remember that 100 men versus 1 gorilla thing, right? And yeah, I'm sure we all agree that after much debate, the 100 men win. You know, there's just too many of them. But the real question shouldn't be who would win. It should be, who would man number 1 be? You know, who's going first? Now let me ask you another question. Who do you think could convince this first man to willingly go to his death against said gorilla? There is one correct answer to this question. Erwin Smith. And not only could he convince a man to charge to his death towards a normal gorilla, he could also convince multiple men to charge to their deaths against a titan gorilla. And before we get to talking about the moment that everybody actually remembers him by, we gotta give him props for all the stuff that he did before then. When Eren got captured by Berthold and Reiner, he was the one that managed to slash him free. And he was the first to notice that there was probably a traitor among the Survey Corps. But obviously, all of this pales in comparison to his defining moment, his speech and charge towards death. He made a speech so inspiring that it could make people want to die for him. He roused a group of people to sacrifice themselves for the greater good, even after admitting that they could ignore him and it wouldn't mean a thing. And at the moment of his death, you could see on his face that he was scared too. He did not want to die. But rather than cower in fear at the enemy before him and his soldiers faced death with courage. Because his soldiers do not buckle or yield when faced with the cruelty of this world. His soldiers push forward. His soldiers scream out. And his soldiers rage. And after all of his contributions to mankind, he still never got to learn the truth of the world. But regardless, he remains unslanderable. And now it's time for the next and final character. I genuinely would be extremely surprised if you did not know who this final character is by now. I'm sure most of you guys have been waiting this whole entire video to see this one particular character. Because when you say unslanderable character, one man in particular comes to mind. The boogie woogie sorcerer, Aoi Todo! No one ever in the history of the universe ever has slandered Aoi Todo. He is the most reliable sorcerer in the whole show. He has a 100% win rate on every fight that he was involved in, and he pushed Yuji to reach heights that he never would have reached alone. He has no anti-feats at all, only positive ones. Now, let me just list off a bunch of feats that he has. He defeated 5 grade 1 curses without even using his curse technique, and he single-handedly defeated a special grade. He punched Itadori hard enough to blast him through like 5 trees, has enough power with just his bare hands and cursed energy reinforcement to deal damage to Hanami, one of the toughest cursed spirits in the verse. He teaches Itadori how to use Black Flash. And later in the series, he himself manages to use Black Flash on Mahito in one of the coolest scenes ever. He has an IQ of 530,000, which at the time of him saying that does seem like a joke. But you can see by this chart here that he actually is the smartest character from both Jujutsu high schools. And speaking of the Kyoto high school, he may as well break his back carrying that sorry-ass team. Out of all the sorcerers in that school, he is the only one that can actually make a stand against a high-level curse. You know, apart from like Mekamaru, but he got slimed out anyway. The actual king of curses referred to him as a Jujutsu sorcerer to the core. He has simple domain, and of course, the final act of deceit with his boogie woogie curse technique allowed Yuji to get the final blow against Mahito. Even outside of just fighting, he was the reason that Itadori had the strength to stand back up after all the horrific shit that happened to him in Shibuya. Because he is the greatest best friend in the world, and by far the most consistent and unslanderable character on this list and in all of anime. GOAT status. Thank you all for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed. I know I did leave some other characters off this list like Escanor and Toph, but hopefully you all agree with the ones I did decide to include. If you're new here and watch this video all the way to the end, please consider subscribing because it really helps the channel. Thanks and have a great day.